Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best tech leaders in the world to help you scale from 2 million ARR to 100 million ARR. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Paul Hadjy, the CEO and co-founder at Horangi. He has been serving companies like Palantir and Grab. He moved forward to start his own company. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's get to know a little bit more about yourself. So how did you end at Horangi, and later what is Horangi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Essentially, throughout my career, I originally started in Washington, D.C. I was working for a government contractor, and in 2009, I met a small company at the time, Palantir, which you had mentioned. Spent about 7 years there, getting to scale the business. So I was in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years, then subsequently actually went to Afghanistan for a year. I was working for Palantir there, and then I was in Korea after that, and then Singapore, and then New Zealand, mostly working on both government intelligence as well as cybersecurity problems. After that, came to a company here in Singapore called Grab, which I'm sure most of you know about as well, and ran their security team. And basically, I'd always been sort of starting companies my whole life. I got an opportunity to learn a lot, watching Palantir scale from about 80 people when I joined to over 3,000 now. Decided to start Horangi. While I was at Grab, I had trouble finding security vendors that understood the public cloud, and saw an opportunity to build a business, and ended up starting Horangi with CTO Lee Salt, who's my actual first cousin.
Cool. Well done. And of course, we see that you are completely passionate about the cybersecurity space, and it's one of the most trendy industries nowadays. And we have even some investors that are now exclusively focused on this vertical. So how is Horangi trying to change the world and impact the world?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been through a couple of product innovations, but we basically are a product and services company. On the product side, we build something in the cloud security posture management space. But essentially, we work with the public cloud providers to help them and their customers secure their public cloud infrastructure. So they all work on a shared responsibility model around security. And what we focus on is the client security posture. Just making sure that they've configured their cloud, are monitoring their cloud, and sort of sending them alerts, giving them the opportunity to fix any security issues that are found in the cloud as their developers are working on it. And then on the services side, we do a lot of the work that traditional companies, cybersecurity services companies do. So things like penetration testing, incident response, but we also do virtual CISO. So basically, we help companies get an understanding of where they're at in their security lifecycle, and then, of course, help them with a roadmap and execution on where they want to be in their security lifecycle as well. And we mostly focus on companies that have adopted the cloud in some way. So a lot of the tech companies in Southeast Asia use Horangi, but we're also working with a lot of the large enterprises as well as they make that shift to the cloud.
Got it. So as you know, we cover here in the Scaleup Valley podcast different stages of growth, from 1 to 5, from 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100. And we even had one outlier episode with the chief product officer at Box that covers the next journey from 100 million to 1B. That's another story. So where are you in, so the audience can understand where is your context? So in terms of ad counts, funding rounds, so a little bit the stage of the company now.
Sure. So we're about 80 people, and we are quite close to 5, so say 5 to 10 in the ARR. And then we have multiple offices across the region because Southeast Asia is specifically quite, there's different countries that we operate in, so that adds an additional challenge. So that's where we're at. Right. Oh, and we're in the process of raising our Series B right now.
Got it. So shout out for some investors who are really looking forward for an amazing company in the cybersecurity space. I love Southeast Asia. I've been there several times. One of our co-founders is based in Kuala Lumpur, and I see that one of the very big markets in the region is Indonesia, where we have several. Not, I would not say several because several unicorns we only have in the US and China, and for than other countries, but in the region is really the country with more unicorns, I believe, but you can correct me.
Yeah, that's correct. Gojek is actually, one of our biggest clients, and we've been working with them since pretty much the beginning of the company, so late 2016. Indonesia is one of the biggest markets, second biggest market for us besides Singapore. It's an exciting place. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, a lot of growth happening, specifically in the tech space, but also like across industries. We see the security need in Indonesia continually growing as a lot more people sort of adopt the cloud. So we have a heavy focus there and have about a 15-person team there as well. So we'll continue to grow Indonesia as much as we can.
That's awesome. So typically we cover 3 critical ingredients to scale in the show. Sometimes we do a little bit of an iteration because this is a continuous learning process as we work with companies, as we learn from our guests as well and their experiences. And we always talk about team, focus, and culture or rhythms, execution. So those are the 3 main ingredients to scale. I would start today and iterate a little bit, starting with focus, because nowadays the kind of the SaaS enterprise napkin, which was initiated by Christoph Jens of Point 9 Capital, had some milestones, but it was not the one that I wanted to talk about. Sorry about this, which is I wanted to talk about the triple, 2 times, double, 3 times from one investor based in New York, if I'm not wrong, Battery Ventures, one of the partners. And nowadays there is a lot of expectations in terms of growth, and some of this growth sometimes it's a little bit insane, and we need to give some context to where we are. And so this theory, for the ones who are joining for the first time, the podcast is kind of growing from, after product market fit, let's say 1 to million ARR, triple 2 times from 2 to 6 million, and then 6 to 18 million, and then double 3 times from 18 to 36, 36 to 72, and 72 to 144 million, which is 100 million plus. So the goal of venture capital would be to get from 0 to 100 million in 5-7 years. This is really world class, very, very difficult to do. Very few companies in the history have done. So what do you think about those expectations? And at the same time, I'm sorry about the long question, we are now seeing a new trend of people that saying, I prefer to bootstrap as much as I can. I try to be capital efficient, and if I want to slow down growth, that's okay. So what is going on in your mind in terms of speed of growth with Horangi?
Sure. I think it's a great question. And like, I think, we're in a bit of a unique position because, we have like basically a SaaS business and a services business. One is, I wouldn't say easy to scale, but one is easier to scale than the other. Right. So it's like a bit more challenging for us. But yeah, I think like, obviously, like, as you mentioned, the world-class companies that can double or triple revenues every year, it's amazing. And if you can do it without like, basically running off the track, I think that's awesome. But I also think like, it's reasonable and okay to grow slower. And it may be that you triple one year, maybe you just double the next, or maybe you only grow 50% the next year. But I actually think that's okay, as long as you are capital efficient. Like you can't expect, and I think no one should realistically expect that they will triple or double every year, because, frankly, over the past, I think 10, 15 years, really 12 years, we've been in sort of like a macro economy that has been growing quite fast. So if that changes, like expectations will change. And I think we kind of already see that starting to happen with a lot of the SoftBank investments, and everyone kind of learning that, hey, maybe like scaling that fast isn't actually good or healthy for the business. And we should think more about investing in terms of ROI and profitable business lines. And I think we're a bit closer to that side. Like we won't just blow money to triple. We'll think about it sensibly. And I think like, our space being in security is like, frankly, like we need to be sensible, right? Like we have our own sort of duty to our customer base to be thoughtful and sort of, very, very exact about how we invest and build our product. Because, and a lot of times we're taking their sensitive data and using it, right? So, we need to be a bit more careful there than other folks because our reputation is paramount. So for us, we grow at the speed that we think is healthy for the business. Sometimes that's double or triple, and that has happened to us. But the most recent year, we decided to slow down a bit. And I think we probably will slow down a bit this year and go for something more like doubling rather than tripling, just because we want to build the right team, build the processes that allow us to scale in the future, make sure that things, of course, and most importantly, run smoothly and securely for our clients.
Right. That's really a great point. And in terms of getting here, so in order to, and sometimes to get from 1 to 5 or 5 to 10, it might be enough to start planning 12 or 18 months in advance, kind of between rounds. But in order to then to go from 10 to 20 or 20 to 50, we need to start thinking a little bit more long-term first. And second, it's all about the speed. So when scaling up, it's very counterintuitive and very tempting to try to open up the verticals, open up the geos, and go for world domination. And then what we are doing is diluting our resources and getting nowhere and getting frustrated and coming back to and losing what is the most precious asset when scaling up, which is time, even more than money. Of course, if we combine time and money, it's a complete disaster. But it's kind of the superhero syndrome. So we were able to go through product market fit, to have early growth, and now we think that we will always win, and we lose a little bit of respect to the market. What is your experience with focus in terms of geos, in terms of verticals, in terms of being cautious and doubling down instead of diluting your resources too much?
Yeah, I think, we've made a lot of mistakes as a business in terms of expanding too fast or focusing on verticals that too early. And I think the more focus you can have, and, frankly, throughout the process, most of the VCs had been telling me this, but it's very hard. I think when you're in the trenches, the opportunities in front of you and you're trying to hit your numbers, et cetera, that you can get sort of swayed off the track. Right. And I think definitely next time around, one thing I want to do better is plainly focus on a region, focus on a specific country even, and a specific sector, own that sector, and then spread from there. I think with cybersecurity, it's not something that is really sector specific. I mean, there is sector specific pieces, but for us, being a cloud security posture management platform, pretty much anyone that's using the cloud can be our customer. But looking back, I think if we did in some ways double down on tech, and I think that's where we've had our highest growth. But if we had taken the resources from focusing on other segments and put them on tech and earlier, I think we could have been a little further in our growth stage. But I think all in all, I'm just super grateful that I had that opportunity to learn that, and also it didn't mess it up. So I think. That the focus thing is hugely important. And again, as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants to make customers or potential customers happy, it's very hard to not focus. But in the end of the day, it probably is the best thing to do.
Okay. And any learnings? So do you also have, as another SaaS and enterprise businesses, the issue of needing to serve small businesses, mid-markets, and enterprise at the same time, or are you more focused in one of those segments?
Yeah, I think we sort of all three right now. I think as we grow and as we sort of market. We'll probably end up looking a bit more towards the mid-market enterprise in terms of how we market and serve. Doesn't mean we won't serve the small businesses, and it's a very important part of our our journey. But I think just like where we want to be as a company, it'll be more on the mid-market and enterprise. I think spreading yourself across, like there's advantages because you kind of get to understand what works in the different segments. But, over a period of time, you probably should choose. When you choose, I think is debatable, but definitely choosing and focusing for a decent amount of time is going to be important.
Got it. And coming to one of the most important topics that every single investor, every single entrepreneur would talk about, which is the team. And there is always this theoretical question about should we go first for strategy or first for team? And that's why I was kind of changing the order several times in the podcast. And I believe that after 5 million ARR, the job of building strategy is not anymore exclusively of the CEO, and it should be of the leadership team because it is getting more and more complex. There is so many moving pieces that there is not a job anymore for just one person. It's for a team, and this is one of the points. So from 1 to 100 million, we will maybe lead 5 to 7 companies. We'll need to be 5 to 7 different CEOs to have 5 to 7 different leadership teams if we want really to grow fast. And this is really a lot of times, and I think that we underestimate a lot as leaders the importance of investing a lot of time on building the team instead of doing stuff. And that's the part of going from entrepreneurial CEO to a executive CEO, doing less stuff and working more on hiring the right people, building relationships with the right people, setting direction, facilitating instead of setting the strategy straight away. So what is your experience kind of moving from the 1 to 5 and now preparing 5 to 10 and anticipating your next stages about the team that you need to build and how you evolve yourself as the CEO to not become the bottleneck?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and something I sort of struggled with myself. So it's a good point. I think going from execution mode to sort of setting strategy, running meetings, and finding the right people. I think it's a hard switch for me. It was. I can't speak for other entrepreneurs, but I imagine it is. I struggled with that, but I've been lucky that I have got a great leadership team here at Horangi. So we brought over our VP of Revenue, Mike from the Valley. We brought Jim and our VP of Cyber Ops, who runs our services team, also from the US. And then Kevin, who's our chairman, came from GIC, which is the Sovereign Wealth Fund here, has been helping us quite a bit as well. I think, we've been blessed with leaders in product and engineering as well. And those, they're all hires that I've focused on a lot on bringing them in and making sure they had the right growth opportunity. Our marketing VP as well. Everyone pretty much I've recruited or been involved with recruiting heavily. And I believe that recruiting is one of the greatest skills that you can have as an entrepreneur. Getting the right people to solve the problems that are in front of you is extremely important. Frankly, I'm not like a finance guy. We've got a great VP of finance too that helps me solve some of the nitty-gritty problems with our model. And things like that. I think all those things, if you have the right people in place, just help you grow. And as a CEO, obviously, you're not going to be the subject matter expert in each function of your business. And your job is more to string everything together to make sure your team is focused on solving the right problems. And that leads into the team and I guess the cadence of our leadership team and how we do it. So for us, we have a weekly meeting where we discuss no more than 3 topics. And we basically focus in drilling deeper into those topics, trying to solve whatever problem it may be, or maybe it's an update depending. And we do that every week. And personally, I look forward to those meetings and hopefully my leadership team does as well. But I find it a good avenue to solve problems. And I think everyone in the leadership team gets a good understanding of the problems that the business is facing. And it helps us sort of solve problems as a team. Because if you don't know what other teams are doing, it's very easy to assume. But I think having a leadership team together, having updates and sort of being a part of solving the problems help them sort of understand that, like each team will go through difficult times throughout the life cycle of the company. And, maybe the whole team will go through a difficult time at some point. But having that understanding of what people are working on and what problems they're facing and how you can help is hugely important. And I think the team spending time together is also important, like casual time, not necessarily about work. I think when you generally like someone, or at least understand someone and then how or why they make decisions, it makes you much more, makes it much easier for you to work with them and solve problems together.
Absolutely. You introduced it already, the third topic, which is great, which is the culture of execution rhythms that you play with the team, which is quite amazing. Do you have any kind of quarterly reviews or quarterly offsites, monthlies, any of those rhythms in place?
Yeah, so we do quarterly OKRs, and we'll do like a day offsite to like discuss major business changes, OKRs. We haven't historically done it every quarter, but last quarter we started, and now it's something we'll be doing going forward. I've found a lot of value from that. We also got an opportunity to work with our executive coach, Rob, and kind of just sit around and give each other feedback. I found that like super powerful for the team, not only for me to hear what I do that other people don't like or they feel like inhibits them, but for all of them together to sort of talk about and kind of understand like how we can all work better together and get better as individuals. I think that is really powerful to have a session like that. And then also like, of course, your normal planning, because it helps sort of solve both the problems of like working together, knowing each other, but also being focused on solving the right problems.
Yeah. This is a very good point. Of course, there is a book that I really recommend for those kind of dynamics, which is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team of Patrick Lencioni. There is also another book that I recommend from him to CEOs that I work with and into the community, which is The 5 Temptations of a CEO. Which is really quite amazing and spot on. And one of the issues that it talks about, and it happens, it's very lonely to be a CEO. So there is a temptation to talk about our own worries and about our own issues with the team. So it's very difficult to understand when are we being vulnerable and sharing what we are thinking about, or when we are sharing too much that we should be sharing with someone outside the company that is impartial, instead of having those worries going through the team, which can block execution, can paralyze some personalities. And that's amazing what you are sharing. And I think that other founders should follow the same. Get to know each other, get to know the personalities, and play on the strengths of each individual to help the team to conquer results. Because sometimes what we are doing is to blame each other about what is not happening. And as you were saying, I've never found a company that is always excited at all times and everything is going well every single day. So, and especially in this kind of companies where high growth, high pressure, as I say, this is the Olympics of business, right? So yeah. It's really, really difficult. So, and for others, it would be a huge success, 50 or 60%, and for some of these leaders in these companies, oh, just 50 or 60%. This is horrible. We should be doubling this, and that's quite amazing. How we look to things. Cool. Something that I also enjoy a lot about your profile, Paul, and your experience is that you have a very strong knowledge about APAC and I assume of the Asian culture and the nuances across the Asian culture, as we say in Europe or in the US or Latin America. It's not Asian, it's not European, it's not American. There are a lot of cultures within those regions. But I think that you are building, as you said in the podcast, a very diverse leadership team, which equips you to really think global and think local at the same time. How do you manage those different cultures when leading a leadership team? Because as we know, in Latin America and Asia, sometimes people are a little bit more subservient, and they would not like to stand up and say their own opinions because of respect to the leader.
Yeah. It's a great question. I'm not going to pretend to have a perfect answer to this because there's constantly challenges we all face. I think there. Yeah, I mean, actually, our company has like over 15 nationalities at just 80 people, so it's quite diverse. The leadership team is at least 6, and we have 10 people total on the team, so it's still pretty diverse. But yeah, I think like, there's constantly challenges around that. And I think like, one important thing that like our leadership coach that we work with, Rob, helps out a lot with is making sure everyone has a voice in the room. So, we do this thing called a round, which like if we have a topic that we're discussing or trying to solve a problem, we basically need to hear everyone's opinion before like we start talking about that problem, right? So everyone will give their opinion without answering. So like no cross sort of communication or anything. It's just like Paul goes, then Alex goes, then Ivan goes, then every single person on the team goes, and they don't talk to each other until the end. And then we kind of like get an understanding of how people think about the problem, and then we go about solving it. I think that's really helpful because it helps with that problem where if someone is more subservient, then they get a chance to voice their opinion, or essentially are forced to voice their opinion.
Right.
And I think that really helps because everyone feels like their voice is heard. And I think like whether you drive consensus or not, at least everyone gets a chance to voice their opinion on the subject, which I think helps a lot if you do have to just make a decision and make everyone drive in the same direction, even if they don't agree.
Yeah. This is another great point. I think that I also have my own coach, which is Sean Bacon, based in Victoria, close to Vancouver, in Canada, and he teaches me this. So we need to have different leadership styles in different situations of the company. So if we are in crisis, if we are going too much in consensus, we would be died before making a decision. So then we need to trust the leader, and the leader needs to make the decision, even if it is not the best one, but someone needs to make the decision, and we all need to follow. Because if we start having doubts, we will all die. And we know that these kind of companies sometimes are in life and death situations, and we need to have a lot of courage, and we need to unite instead of diverge when tough things happen, and they happen often. So how do you combine those different situations when you need really to be decided and when you need to make the team feel hard, as you said, and involved?
Yeah, sure. I think like we call it like wartime CEO, peacetime CEO. Like I'm pretty sure that's from a book, but I can't remember which one.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely like I personally struggle much more with the wartime CEO than the peacetime. I think I'm much better peacetime CEO than I'm wartime, and being that I try to avoid wartime as much as possible, but no one can and always avoid it. So what I try to do is I work closer with my coach during wartime around the decisions I'm making, when to make them. And then, I push myself to make a decision. I think, great leaders, are only right, like just a little bit more than 50% of the time. But the important thing about them is just making the decision, right? And not holding up the rest of the business without making one. So try to focus on that and do it. Not perfect, learned a lot, got a lot of feedback from my team, which has been very useful for me at getting better at this. But yeah, I think, making the decision quickly, pointing the team in the right direction, and, you don't have to get to consensus, but at least making sure that everyone has their voice heard is very helpful in those decisions where they may not agree. They disagree, but commit, and is kind of how we work it.
Yeah, we kind of introduced it sometimes, the topic, and we started with Ann Bodden, the CEO of Starling Bank, which is not a SaaS business, but we thought it would be an interesting outlier to bring to the show, and we know that sometimes as CEOs we don't do a very good job taking care of ourselves. So we always care about the clients, we always care about the team, we always care about the investors, and sometimes there is no time to take care about ourselves. And we know to be in the best shape possible, intellectually, physically, spiritually, we need to invest in taking care of ourselves to be our best self for those people as well. How do you ensure that you keep your energy in place and that you don't get too much inside the business and your emotions start controlling yourself, right?
Yeah, it's a great question, and again, I learned this from making mistakes. But yeah, I think like I focus a lot on fitness, just making sure that I have time. It's like one time when I still actually think about the business a little bit, but it's a lot less than normal.
We all struggle with that.
So I like and like doing one of my friends who's also a CEO said he loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he said the reason he loves it is it's pretty hard to think about your business when someone's trying to choke you to death, right? And like it makes sense, right?
Right. Very good point.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like fitness is important. Like if your body is healthy, generally, at least personally, I feel like my mind is in a better place. I try not to, like, I think earlier on in my career, I drank a bit more than I should have. And I think I've cut that back a bit and focused a lot more on just having a clear head as much as possible. I think that helps. Sleeping more, I think, there's nothing that can replace that. It's super helpful in terms of keeping you not as stressed. I wouldn't say it eliminates stress, but it does help manage it. Yeah, and then taking time for yourself, whether that's via meditation or whatever your individual hobby is very important. And again, like I learned that from experience where I would just like dive into work for years at a time, never take a vacation. But more recently, I've taken some vacations, and I feel like I've done a much better job at work when I have a little bit of time off, and it can be just a day or two, but having that time to just get away and relax, I think is really important and something that I took for granted for most of my career, I think.
Got it. And just coming a step back, you're talking about the importance of sometimes not going too fast in terms of growth to be able to prepare the growth machine to be more repeatable, scalable, profitable, and namely about structuring the right team, having the right process in place. And this is very interesting. I'm not sure what is the source or what was the person that I was talking about it, but sometimes when we are moving from 1 to 5 million ARR, we are super excited about the market, and we are working a lot. We are very close to the client. We are outside selling, and then the system starts to break, and we have a broken system. And then from 5 to 10, we go inside and we become too much inward focused and solving issues internally when there is more competition and we are getting to a certain threshold in terms of revenue, 5 to 10, where competitors start looking to us. Oh, what is happening with these guys? This is not anymore a small startup that is kind of trying to conquer or challenge us. This is becoming serious, and the speed of growth, the pace of growth that they are achieving, we should be a little bit more aggressive when we are competing for the same clients. So what kind of job have you been doing from this 1 to 5 and as you prepare to the 5 to 10 in terms of processes? So can you share any tips around that?
Yeah, I think from 1 to 5, we started building a sales team. We originally had a person in sales who didn't come from a startup previously. That didn't work out very quickly. And we hired individual salespeople, which I actually managed for the first year of from 1 to 5. Luckily, we found a great VP of revenue who was moving back to the region from the Valley. Brought him in, and he's really built a lot of their processes and worked a lot with the team on sort of upskilling and coaching. I think for me, like, while I've never been in a direct sales job, I've done sales, of course, throughout my in some level of my career. I didn't know the processes and building out the CRM and sort of how to build a cadence, how to run sales meetings and stuff like that. And I think bringing him in really showed me what can be done if you do that in the right way. And I think that was a huge struggle for me. Same thing with marketing. We brought in a VP of marketing who's been seriously focused on building the internal gears of the machine that pump leads out. That's been hugely successful for us, and also helped us a lot in building our brand, which is very important in the security space. And again, I knew how to build brand at some level, but building the machine is not something I had experience with, and bringing the right people in to build the marketing machine was hugely important. But yeah, I think these days it's more about making sure the different executives work together well, making sure we're solving problems like holistically for the company. So it's not just about product, not just about marketing, or not just about sales, but like how do we solve the problems that are cross-functional? And I think that can be difficult, especially if you have younger executives. It can be difficult. And these days, focusing a lot on the team. So making sure that we have the right focus as a business, the right focus as the company. Obviously, fundraising sucks up a bit of my time, but luckily my chairman's quite good at it, so he's been feeling the brunt of it. Yeah, and I think also it's like the main struggle for me throughout that process was like not stepping on my executives' toes. It's like they've experienced and know what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, do you think we should actually do that? I'm not sure. And then they're like, yeah, we should definitely do this. Like, I know this. I'm like, okay. But I definitely stepped on their toes way too much, and that's like one thing I regret. I should have just let them run a bit more. But I think that's the struggle that a lot of us early entrepreneur CEOs struggle with is you want to be involved. You're not sure what to do. You're not sure what to focus on. And you struggle to find that. And I think, over the past 6 months, I've sort of figured it out, but it wasn't easy. So these days I'm focused much more on like top of funnel stuff. So like speaking a lot at conferences, talking about the company, talking about our new products, doing things around recruiting, bringing in the right people to help us scale. And then, running the leadership team meetings, managing internal conflicts, managing internal retention of the customers, but also the team members that work at the company as well. And one thing I started recently is like meeting usually the top 20 customers every quarter. And I think that's brought a lot of value for us as a business as well. And I think it went from meeting every customer to like top 20, and then meeting whatever customers I can throughout that process. And I think that's really helped in sort of solidifying those relationships with our big customers, and making them like, Horangi supporters, and allowing them and us to talk about our relationship.
Again, very good lessons shared. Paul, we are coming to the end of the podcast, and unfortunately, there is still so much room to discuss, namely fundraising lessons and so on. But that's a good excuse to have you back soon to share your lessons as you keep scaling. So if you would have the opportunity to come back to meet Paul 4 years ago when you were starting Horangi, so what would be the key advice that you would give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. As I think about it, there's a couple major things. So one is like, I would have hired product and marketing way earlier than I did. I think we hired them around 1 to 2 million, and actually most of the product or marketing stuff was done by myself up to that point. And I think like there's a couple lessons learned there that I missed, and if I would have hired experts in the field earlier, we could have been a bit further along. So that's like one major thing that I would tell myself. And coming from Palantir, it was a company that really didn't have marketing most of the time I was there. I didn't value as much as I should have, and yeah, that's a big thing of mine. Yeah, I think like focus is important. Like I definitely made a couple decisions where we went off in the wrong direction. I didn't recognize it quickly enough, and should have shifted faster. Hindsight's 20/20, but I think that's another regret that I'm sure most CEOs or founders have. And then the last thing I think would be is like just getting executives earlier. I think a lot of the value for me growing as a CEO, and of course the company as well, is having the experience of seasoned executives in their field to solve problems, and types of people that allow me to focus on what's important in the business and not on managing them. I think that really helped me, and is one of the defining points, I think, in the company, as well as in my growth as well. So I think those three things is really what it is for me.
That's an amazing way of closing the show. Paul, thanks so much for making the time to share your story with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks for having us.
And to our community, thanks for being there. We keep bringing the best tech leaders in the world to help you scale from 2 million to 100 million. See you soon and keep scaling.